A line is drawn in the sand or snow over Senate climate legislation. The co-author that says that line lies in Alaska. President Obama once again touts his energy efficiency plans today, why the latest clean energy road trip won't take him too long. And the DOE takes an official step toward a new nuclear waste storage site, withdrawing its license application for Yucca Mountain.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good Friday morning. I'm Tyler Suiters in for Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report on this 5th day of March 2010. A deal breaker. That is what Senator Joe Lieberman is now calling the prospect of drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. He is one of 3 co-authors of the Senate climate bill we're expecting within the next few weeks. And Lieberman now says that he's a longtime opponent of going for more oil and natural gas in the 19 million acre Alaskan wilderness, and that could be the deal breaker. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski said earlier this week the only way she would vote for a climate bill, and this comes from a Republican, would be if it included new ANWR drilling. But Lieberman says that's not going to happen. He told reporters at the Capitol yesterday his group is working to bring lawmakers from both parties on board with this bill, but ANWR is, in his words, a no-no. We expect to see the Kerry Graham-Lieberman bill sometime later this month. President Obama once again has green jobs on his agenda. Today he's discussing his 21st century vision during a visit to O-Power. This is a Washington, D.C. area company that makes energy efficiency software. The company's most successful program is one that generates reports for customers showing them how their energy use compares to their neighbors and to people with similar sized homes. We'll have the president's full speech here on our website later today at cleanskies.com. The top Republican on the Senate panel overseeing the EPA is now calling for a hard look at the workings of the agency. Wyoming's John Barrasso is the ranking member of the Senate Environment and Public Works Subcommittee on Oversight. And he now has a report he says shows the panel has not been doing its job over the last year. Among the things being missed, Barrasso says, key administration activities that undermine transparency and sound science. And he says the panel has failed to look into whistleblowers being silenced, including this man. This is Alan Carlin, an economist with EPA. He criticized the science behind last year's endangerment finding. We spoke with Carlin last year. He acknowledged his report was hastily written, but says he was unfairly told that information would not be considered and to stop his work on endangerment. The EPA says Carlin, however, was not silenced. Barrasso, as a result, is calling for the confirmation of nominee Arthur Elkins as EPA Inspector General, and Barrasso wants Elkins to conduct a full investigation into these and other matters at EPA. The official motion to withdraw the license application to store nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain is now filed. The DOE says it filed that motion with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission with prejudice. President Obama instructed Steven Chu to establish a commission to study how best to dispose of U.S. nuclear waste, and in turn, the Energy Secretary established a Blue Ribbon Commission on America's nuclear future. That commission will conduct a comprehensive review of policies involving the back end of the nuclear fuel cycle and also provide recommendations for developing a long-term solution to U.S. nuclear waste and spent fuel. That commission will hold its first meeting on March 25th. Now, earlier this week, I spoke with NRC Chairman Gregory Jaczko. We talked about the issue of spent fuel and the current U.S. system of dry cask waste storage.
We know how to deal with spent fuel. We've been doing that for decades. Most of the plants that are operating out there have been operating for several decades, some even at least 40 years. So all of them have been generating spent fuel for 40 years, and we know how to manage that. We know how to manage it with wet storage or in dry cask storage. So I think we have a good program in the short to certainly medium term to understand what the safety and security implications are for that spent fuel and to be able to manage it safely.
You can see my entire interview with Chairman Jaczko, including our discussion about potentially streamlining the licensing process at NRC. That conversation is here on our website, cleanskies.com. And Chairman Jaczko's NRC, the commission, is now one crucial step closer to receiving its new members. Yesterday, the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee approved 3 NRC nominees. And here they are, George Apostolakis. He is an MIT professor and former chairman of the Statutory Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards. Also, William Magwood. He spent 7 years as DOE's Director of Nuclear Energy. And finally, Bill Ostendorf, Principal Deputy Administrator for National Nuclear Security Administration. The final step will be confirmation from the full Senate. If they receive that, those three men will then take their jobs as commissioners with the NRC. A coal company is now suing federal regulators, arguing that they use citation quotas to do their jobs. East St. Louis-based American Coal wants a judge to halt what it calls abusive oversight by the Mine Safety and Health Administration. That lawsuit claims the number of citations the agency issued jumped from 145,000 in 2007 to 175,000 last year, many of them unfounded. The lawsuit also contends an MSHA inspector told the company's managers in late 2007 his superiors had told him to issue a certain number of citations per inspection hour. MSHA denies that it uses quotas. American's parent company is Murray Energy, which operates the Crandall Canyon mine in Utah. That's where 9 people died in a 2007 cave-in and rescue attempt. A similar lawsuit was thrown out last month, but a federal judge did allow the company to file an amended suit earlier this week. Overseas this morning, the European Union is now taking steps to avoid a future natural gas supply crisis. The EU is offering to help pay for construction of the Nabucco pipeline running from Turkey to Ukraine and along the way bypassing Russia. This is the first time the EU has offered money for construction in this phase of a gas pipeline, and it signals a firm commitment by Europe to reduce its dependence on Russian natural gas. And this is an area that you see right here that we're talking about where this pipeline would be constructed. Now, EU Commissioner Gunther Oettinger says the $270 million pledge is part of a more than $2 billion package of energy infrastructure projects. That funding could help restart progress on the Nabucco. The companies that back the pipeline need to begin ordering some of the pipes in order to receive that money. The total cost of the Nabucco project is estimated at nearly $11 billion. A gas thought to exacerbate global warming is now bubbling out of the frozen Arctic faster than expected. In fact, scientists say methane levels there are at their highest levels in 400,000 years. A report in today's journal Science says methane became trapped in the permafrost over time, and a warming climate is now resulting in its release. Historically, methane concentrations in the world's atmosphere have ranged from between 0.3 and 0.4 parts per million in cool periods to 0.6 to 0.7 in warm periods. But these researchers say the methane concentrations in the Arctic right now average about 1.85 parts per million. Co-author Natalia Shakova from the University of Alaska says that amount is comparable to the amount emitted by all of the world's oceans. As we wind up the work week here in Washington, here's a look at some of the events scheduled around the nation's capital. Beginning today and continuing throughout the weekend, the Energy Council holds its 2010 Federal Energy and Environmental Matters Conference. This takes place at the Madison Hotel. Clean Skies News will be on hand. At 11:25 a.m. Eastern this morning, the aforementioned speech from President Obama at O-Power. This is in Northern Virginia, just across the river from us here in Washington. This is an energy efficiency software company. We will follow the president's speech and post it here on cleanskies.com later today. And finally, at 1 o'clock Eastern this afternoon, the National Academy of Sciences is meeting on the economic and environmental impacts of increasing biofuels production. Clean Skies News is covering that event as well. And that is this Friday morning edition of the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us. You can follow us throughout your day on Facebook and Twitter and reach us here in the nation's capital anytime at contact@cleanskies.com. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, we're glad you're with us. I'm Tyler Suiters, and you're watching Clean Skies News.